I am here today with Kelly Handerhan, one of Cybrary's most famous and most requested instructors. Right now, I believe you have 8 courses on our site, ranging from beginner level courses all the way to advanced courses. The beginner ones starting at like asset security and then going all the way up to the CISO course that you teach.
Correct.
So, I mean, just to get started, I mean, were you always like a computer person, back?
That's a great question. And people ask me because I'm going on my 25th year in the field. And quite honestly, I wasn't always a computer person. And at some point in time, I felt like I had to make some grown-up decisions about my career.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting tables well past college and didn't have a whole lot of direction. And because I was good with computers, a friend of mine suggested, hey, why don't you go to that? Now, keep in mind, we're talking in the 90s where good with computers meant I could play spider solitaire instead of just solitaire. But that kind of got me thinking, and I just did a complete about-face career change, kind of immersed myself into the field, got lucky with some beginning level jobs, and just found out I had a passion for it.
Okay. Did you go into like a boot camp type thing, or just kind of... I want to say online courses, but that probably was not a thing.
Not a thing then. I went to the Fred Flintstone online school. Very different. No, I did get a job as a trainer teaching Microsoft Word, Excel, and there was a big market for this back 20-some years ago. And so I started with Word version 4, which was the predecessor to 95, because I've always loved training. Mm-hmm. And so that was my skill set at the time. And, I just knew the Microsoft Office products, but I got a job in training. And so I was around others that knew more than I did. So I was able to kind of by osmosis pick up some things, the folks that were teaching the Microsoft classes. Then they'd let me come in and set up their class, test out their labs. So I found that I had kind of a natural pull towards the technical aspects of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're picking up keywords and stuff that people are talking about, and, somebody will mention something like, oh, okay, let me, research that a little bit or kind of, study that, especially, if you're already in the classroom and you're there and people like you, so.
Yeah, and more and equally importantly, I got some stuff I could put on a resume. Mm-hmm. And I began to kind of think about, well, if I'm going to move to the technical realm, I need to start doing some technical things. So in addition to that, and you're right, just hearing the language, hearing the context, I did some volunteer work for a local women's shelter back in North Carolina, just to, again, kind of build that resume up. And when you're volunteering, people give you a lot of leeway. Mm-hmm. So it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, those kind of beginning level positions and stuff really do help you. Even if you don't know a lot, you kind of pick it up as you go, and you're going to make a bunch of mistakes. I started as like an IT help desk person, and I was constantly making mistakes and deleting things I shouldn't have. But you learn as you go.
Oh yeah, I remember just how naive I thought. I can't wait to learn IT, the technical aspects, and nobody told me all that meant was screw a bunch of stuff up, stay there till midnight and fix it, but by golly, you don't do it again.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it worked.
Yeah, when you're first starting to get into it, you're just thinking IT like it's computers, and it is so much more. There's so much else going on.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah, so I mean, how did you kind of make the jump to like cybersecurity type things?
Right. So I was still at the training company, and one of the things that the training company at the time focused on a lot was the Microsoft certifications. At the time, we're looking at Windows NT 4.0. And I did some studying. I bought a couple of the Bootcamp books, went through them on my own because, like you said, we didn't have online resources then, and I couldn't afford an in-class, they've always been very expensive certification courses.
Yes.
And I just couldn't afford that. So I got the books. I went home, studied like crazy, and I passed 3 out of the 7 exams off the bat. At that point in time, I was able to go back to my boss with a little bit of experience and some certifications under my belt. And that was enough to show them that I had the capability and I had the drive. And sometimes it's not about all the experience in the world, right? Getting started. Sometimes it's just about a willingness and it's a proclivity towards a skill set. And that's what kind of helped me shift over there to doing some technical support stuff for the training company. And that just kind of expanded to other jobs. I stayed on training part-time there, but then I was looking for more and more jobs that really were hands-on technical. So a few of those jobs, Icon Office Solutions and some of the other companies around the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. And I just did, I made very honest phone calls. Luckily, I was able to get with the right person. And I literally said, I don't have real-world experience. I'm willing to work. And the part that caught their eye was, I'm willing to work for peanuts.
Yeah.
Because I knew an investment today was going to pay off in the long run. So honestly, over the course of 4 or 5 years, it was kind of a progressive step by step, but I had to be patient with it and I had to pay my dues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's, you're not going to know everything off the bat. And a lot of times it's more important to be like hungry and want to learn and have like the willingness to kind of spend the time to do things than to just know everything kind of up front.
So true, because so many companies have proprietary equipment, devices, processes. And sometimes we get folks that have been in the field for 25 years and I know how to do it. Nobody's telling me this. And that doesn't work. Yeah. So many times I've known hiring managers. Now, usually there's a set of prereqs for a position. But if I take somebody that meets those prereqs, that's willing to work and learn, that's sometimes better for me than somebody with 20 years experience.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, when you don't have the experience, like you said, you're kind of willing to, work for peanuts and kind of build yourself up. I think a lot of people have the expectation that I'm going to take a course or something, I'm going to know everything and I'm going to jump right in and be able to do anything and not, it is kind of a building block. You do kind of start from nowhere and, you just kind of slowly learn over time and kind of taking the time to get the skills that you need.
Absolutely. And I've found for me personally, certifications have been crucial along the way. And I know a lot of people kind of thumb their nose, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I have to get certified? Because that's what the market demands. If I've got 50 resumes on my desk and I'm told to look for a CISSP, the resumes go in 2 stacks. And I've got 20 who are CISSPs, 30 that aren't. Now I go through the resumes of the 20 CISSPs and I find who's got the experience to match. I see who does well in the interviews. But it's just one of those things, particularly in certain regions, if you're looking to work within the military or government contracting environment, sometimes healthcare, credit card industry, the certifications are just in high demand.
Yeah.
So, when I started approaching this, I thought if that's what I have to do to get a job, that's just what I have to do to get a job. And I got a lot of certs very early on. Doesn't mean that every time I introduced myself, I gave a string of letters. Or that my business card had 1,800 letters behind them, But it's... Sometimes we do an electronic search of resumes to see who has Security Plus on it, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We just get the cert that's in demand.
Yeah, you get, what you need most.
Exactly.
So, I mean, how did that lead into you wanting to start teaching or instructing?
So, I had been teaching through the Microsoft Word courses. And the thing I love about this field, IT and information security and this realm, is there's room for everybody. I am not somebody that's going to look over 10,000 lines of code sitting in a basement. I'm just not. I'm kind of, I'm outgoing. I like to work with people. So what I found is the more real world work I did, the more I found that I wanted to bring in more of the human element. So I would kind of be the liaison between the technical team and management and the end users, because that's such an essential skill. You can't always find somebody that speaks tech and people at the same time, and that was just something I had. And I really pride myself on teaching because I love to take a difficult concept and break it down so that we go, oh my God, Kerberos is just like a carnival, or as a service is just like pizza, or any of those things, because this can be a complex field.
Yes.
Not everybody that comes into this field needs 100-mile depth of technical at first.
Yeah.
So I try to teach to the degree that's appropriate for the exam, and I love it. I've had some great results. I've had some, great comments from students and feedbacks and some relationships built. And, I think, as a matter of fact, the first time I ever taught a class, which was Excel 4, I walked out of the class and I literally said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that was teaching.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky that I found two of my, real passions kind of coinciding. It doesn't always happen for people, so I feel very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very lucky. Yeah, something that, when you like two things, they kind of come together and you can kind of do both of them. So, I mean, was that Microsoft that, Excel 4, is that the first time you ever did any sort of instructing or teaching?
It was. It was the first time in a class, and, you prep for it, and then you find out everything you did to prep was totally wrong. But you just go in and kind of help people get to their end result. And, over 20-some years, it's been an amazing learning experience, just in how to work with people, how to explain topics, but also even in technical aspects. One of the greatest things to me that I didn't anticipate with all these years of training is I've learned so much. Every class, I still believe that I learned something. Somebody's got a little different experience. They'll ask a question I've never heard of, and then you go out and you research it, or it's a different way of thinking about things. So that's another nice thing about this field. You're just continually learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm assuming on that first course that you did, you were a little nervous. Is that something you still feel? Like, do you still get a little jittery, whether it's in front of people or, like your Cybrary live courses, that a bunch of people sign into?
Absolutely. Every single class for the last 20-some years, I walk into that first morning where I greet the students. There's that thought of, what if nobody likes you?
Yeah.
What if they don't think your jokes are funny?
Yeah. I run into that constantly.
Don't you?
Yes.
And then now I just kind of go in and I say, you know what? Half my jokes are just for me.
Yep.
But I'm laughing. I'm going to have a good time for this class. Hope you can come along for the ride.
Absolutely. And I mean, that definitely, I think that comes across in your courses because, I mean, you've taken a bunch of technical training. I've done it as well. And a lot of the courses, it's somebody talking in an extremely monotone voice. There's no inflection on anything. And they're just going over numbers and data and spreadsheets. And it just kind of lulls you to sleep after a while. So, when you kind of put yourself into the course a little bit and kind of, make it fun, it definitely, we can tell from the people who take your course, they really appreciate it. It makes it a lot more interesting to, if you're going to have to sit through 5 hours or something like that.
Exactly. My philosophy is we're all just trying to get a little more money, have a little better job, have a little better career with advancement opportunities. And some of this stuff is dry.
Yeah.
But if we can make it understandable, if we can make it attainable, man, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, kind of open it up for everybody a little bit.
Absolutely. That's what I love about Cybrary, is the whole premise is everybody should be able to have this knowledge. You don't see that in most places. It's usually, I've taught places where the MCSE certification alone was $30,000. People are taking out student loans for years and years.
Yep.
And man, to come here and say, we've got so much talent out there. And if all of us are smarter, we're all better off. So let's work together. Let's help each other along the way. I mean, I'm not going to sing Kumbaya right now, but man, that community spirit, is one of the things that I fell in love with Cybrary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a perfect segue into my question. How did you find out about Cybrary? I mean, how did you, come to be part of, one of our best instructors?
I had been doing some training at an organization that Ryan Corey who is our founder. And he and I developed a relationship because we're both very sarcastic, obnoxious people in our real lives, and just kind of an affinity for Ryan. And he came to me very early on, and he said, "I've got this great idea." And I listened to his idea, and I said, "Ryan, that's great." And I went home and I said, "That will never work.
Yeah.
That will never work." And, this crazy idea at the time, because when you go back, when Cybrary was founded, I mean, this shook up the training industry, right?
Yeah.
No longer, why take a $30,000 course? Right? You can get this same material and knowledge for free.
Yeah.
Right? So he is a charming, fun guy, and we would, chat every time we'd work together. And I said, what's the worst thing that can happen is I spend a little bit of time. And we were very, very low budget at that time. As a matter of fact, there's still a couple of videos here and there that are shot from, somebody's $80 camera in a darkened room. But we have come so long. It's just been exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talking about it not working. I'm assuming you're talking about the freemium setting where it's just, let's just give it all away for free. I mean, that's the biggest barrier for people.
Oh,
those $30,000 courses, or even those kind of lower level courses that's $7,000 or $7,500, but you have to go for a full week of class in like Utah for something like that. You have to do it in person,
and it's straight. You can't work around your schedule, and it's all that money, and that's the training environment I grew up in.
Yeah.
So for somebody to say, "Hey, we're going to take this what normally sells for $30,000 and we're going to give it away," or this $5,000 class we're going to do, it just seemed insane to me.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the native, fear for me as an instructor. Well, what happens if I just teach myself right out of business, right?
Yeah. What happens to me?
Exactly. Because I think knowledge should be free, but I'll charge you for my time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I do, right? Yeah. So I make my living going around teaching, and what's going to happen? Well, what turned out happening is I got a tremendous amount of name recognition by doing this. I really believe there's always a certain part of the population that's going to want in-person training.
Absolutely.
And so now as an instructor, when I go, any company I go to training on my own, they've heard of me. Anybody in IT training certification specifically has heard of Cybrary. So it's just been such a great resource for me to reach a bigger market. And I am absolutely, my business is stronger than I ever dreamt it would be.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah, that's been, an odd, surprising side effect.
Nice side perk, yeah.
It is. So I like what I do, and I make a little change here and there. You can't beat that.
It's not bad getting recognized every now and then, too. It does feel good when, especially, I've heard you tell a couple times, multiple people have come up to you and just thanked you in person, kind of out of the blue, when you're out.
Yeah, those are my favorite. And I get some super nice emails, and I can't always respond to all of them. Yeah. But I'm so grateful to hear people being successful, people that felt like I played just a little part in nudging them towards a certification. It's such a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's see. With all of these different courses and everything that you're teaching, is there one particular that you like to teach, like above the others, or, that you find more interesting, or you get different questions from people?
I think I'll always have a soft spot for CISSP. That class I love to teach. It's got so much information across so many domains. To me, I think it's so interesting. Yeah. It's also one of those courses that everybody can learn something from because it's so broad. We've got management, business continuity, risks. And then on the technical side, we've got crypto, and we've got networking, telecom, and those things. And that is a class I have taught so many times. And yet, every class I teach, a little something different comes up. Yeah. And I love it. I also love PMP, Certification Project Management. I love CISSP and CRISC. Honestly, if I had to pick one, it'd be CISSP. But I don't think there's a course in my repertoire that I don't enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, especially since you enjoy teaching and stuff, you probably wouldn't want to teach something that you just think is boring or.
And that's true. I have that ability to say, you know what, I'm just not going to do underwater basket weaving. Right? It's just not my thing.
That was my favorite course in college, but it's
absolutely.
I was terrible at it.
It was a hard major though, right?
Yeah. Oh, basket weaving 101 was one of the worst courses.
Tricky, always tricky.
So, do you have any advice for people trying to get into the field now? I mean, is there a specific, like pathway or something that you kind of tell them to go through, or, how do you start people off?
So I think the first thing is everybody's got a passion. Mm-hmm. You're going to be more successful if you're following that.
Yeah.
So if I am not excited about program development and looking at code, I may hear I can make a certain amount of money doing that. Don't do it if it's not something you enjoy.
Yeah.
Right? So first of all, find what interests you and just dive in and just accept the fact that, the first 2-3 years are going to be tough. Mm-hmm. You're not going to do a lot of things right. You're not going to get the primo job. You're not going to get that corner window or the good parking space. Yeah. And, sometimes I think today we just expect to walk out of college and say, boom, where's my, $80,000 job or whatever. So I also really recommend certifications. And I honestly am not saying that because, maybe there's a conflict of interest me saying that, but from just a heart-to-heart perspective, this industry demands certification.
Yeah.
Honestly, to me, even more so than a degree. Mm-hmm. Rarely do I see on job searches 4-year degree in information systems, but I see Security Plus, CISSP, those.
Yep.
So I do believe the certs are essential. And then the thing that a lot of people don't think to do is volunteer. Somebody, somewhere, some nonprofit needs some help.
Yep.
That is work on a resume, right? Mm-hmm. And that is experience. And if you can go in there and give 5 hours a week for a while or whatever you can give, you will learn. You will learn.
Yeah, getting that real world experience you're going to learn way more breaking something that you have to fix immediately than, doing something in a class or a lab or something like that.
That's absolutely true. It just is. And usually things in a lab go the way they're supposed to. Yeah. I remember the first 2 years that I spent saying, hey, I'll be home at 5, then calling back at 7 and say, I'll be home at 9, and then showing up home at midnight.
Yep.
Because things just don't work. And I'll tell you, even when I started teaching labs, every now and then the labs wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. And I'd have a handful of students get so angry that the labs didn't work. Honey, what do you think your job's going to be?
Yeah,
right.
Your first line of code's not going to run perfect every time you run it.
Exactly. So get some real world experience. Go out and take the Geek Squad or the not Home Depot, Office Depot, or take something. You got a full-time job, work 5 hours a week.
Yeah.
Do something to add to your resume, and that with the certs make you look appealing.
Yeah.
When you sell yourself on your resume, sell yourself on your interview. If you don't have experience to sell your enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I love this topic. It's been a hobby of mine, this field. It's been a hobby of mine for 15 years. I still remember the 386. Sell yourself because you have something to offer.
Yeah.
And your job in an interview is to convince the person that you want to be working with that it's worth taking a chance on you.
Yeah, I think one of the, a big pitfall that a lot of people run into in an interview is if they're asked something or like a technology or something that they don't know and they want to try to act like, oh, yes, I know that. It's way better to be like, I don't know that, but I'm willing to learn. I will put in the time, kind of showing that you're going to go the extra mile instead of just saying, because I've been in interviews where people, oh yeah, I definitely know that. And then you ask them a pretty easy question and they have no idea what they're talking about. And it's, you would rather somebody just be upfront with you about those type of things.
Absolutely. And that's true in teaching too.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, you'll get a question that you're just like, oh my gosh. And what I always try to do is I buy myself a little time, first of all, because sometimes that deer in the headlights panic is like, oh my God, I don't know. And then if you think about it, and in an interview, what Wow, that's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. Now, if I had to take a guess, here might be some ways that I would do that. Or, since I haven't heard from that, what I'd probably start out doing would be to go to Google and just see what's out there on an upper level and then see if there's some resources to dig further.
Yeah.
Right? Let me tell you, the first time you make up something about a thermal flux capacitor, they will call your bluff on it.
No.
No, exactly. And it only takes once to get called on some BS before you're like, I can't do that anymore.
No.
And really, I find in interviews and in the class, people are kind of rooting for you. They want you to be successful, right? Nobody's just, oh my God, she doesn't know everything under the sun. And so that honesty of, let me get back to you on that. I haven't thought about that before. And then you have to do it, right? You can't just say, ask me later. But students appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of going back to what you're saying is about, do something that you're passionate about. I mean, IT and cybersecurity is a giant field.
Huge.
Whether, you want to be the person on the front lines programming stuff, I mean, there's that. You can get into project managing. You can run the entire network. I mean, that all of these are all completely separate jobs, do completely different things, use completely different tools. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there. You can easily find maybe not easily, but you can find your niche in, what you like to do kind of within the space.
Yeah, I always feel like there's room for everybody. This is a huge field. And then once you get in, and you don't have to define your niche right from the bat, right? You can get in. I always thought it was crazy that you have to declare a major your first year in college. I don't even know how to find McIver Hall, much less what I want to do when I grow up, right?
Yeah.
Come in general IT. Help desk is a great place to start. And let me tell you, you learn a lot. You may not want to stay in help desk for very long.
Yeah.
It's a tough job.
Yes, it is.
But you see, well, here's how networking is different from security. And here's how system administration is different from network administration, And then I think you got to move towards a specialization. Information security, obviously very hot. Find something that's hard to outsource. We're not going to outsource information security in those elements where we don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of being there in the front lines. And I mean, IT help desk is definitely a hard, kind of grueling job. It takes, some getting used to. But I mean, it's the best way to start figuring out what you enjoy the most. Like if you're constantly helping somebody, with their internet connection and stuff like that, and you start getting really good at the networking side, I mean, that kind of shows you where you might want to start, going into.
Absolutely. And if you find you love the calls and you love helping people, a lot of companies now are hiring what they refer to as ambassadors, which do exactly the role that I talked about, is that go-between.
Yeah.
Because we're all stronger when we work together.
Correct.
But there's been this disconnect between end users and IT. And I think a lot of the cause for that's on the IT side. I think there's a little technical snobbery.
Yes.
Well,
you don't know this.
Let me show you how brilliant I am by speaking in letters for the next 5 minutes, right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to just type you an email in binary, right? So, there's just so many possibilities. It's a rewarding field. There's money to be made, but there's so many other benefits. A lot of IT people work from home. A lot of IT people have flexible schedules. If you're in this field long enough, you will reap the benefits, I really believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's not something like we were talking about. You're not going to get it immediately like a lot of people expect. Like,
Definitely.
Oh, well, now I have my certifications. I'm going to be able to do whatever I want. It's just like any other, job or position. Like it is going to take a while. But yeah, I mean, the perks definitely are there. I mean, being able to work from home, flexible schedules, being able to travel kind of constantly. Is always nice.
And, sometimes I'll hear folks say, folks that are middle-aged, I'm 45 years old. By the time I get certified and paid my dues, I'm going to be 55. Well, you know what? You're going to be 55 anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're going to be 55. Why not with the tools and the skills? And I know people talk about ageism in this industry. And sometimes we do see the 20-year-old that can have amazing technical skills. Employers still value experience in the real world apart from a computer as well.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, I'm 48. I don't want for a job. I don't have difficulty filling up my schedule. And I feel like I'll be able to say that's true in 10 more years because I bring a lot to the table other than just technology.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So you definitely have to keep up with the technology. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I just still feel like it's a field for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's part of kind of Cybrary's mission is that it is kind of open to everybody. We're trying to get it out there for everybody and make it easily accessible on your own schedule.
Right.
You can take the courses at your leisure as quickly or as slowly as you need to, which is a great part of being a part of Cybrary, I think.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, let's see, Kelly. So I sent out and said that we were going to have you in today. So I got just a couple of questions from a couple students, some of our members. So I just wanted to go over a couple. So Liz asked if you had any tips on memorizing things like common port numbers, hash functions, or ciphers.
Liz, that's a great question. There are some things you just flat out have to memorize. Mm-hmm. And, honestly, some of this stuff you're memorizing and don't even know the significance of it. I remember the OSI model. The OSI model was just something dumb I had to memorize to pass a test for a couple of years until one day I was like, oh, that's why it's important. Mm-hmm. That's what we're seeing. So some things like, for instance, port numbers. To me, port numbers are just brute force memorization. Go back to your 6th grade memories and get some flashcards. On the front, FTP. On the back, port 20 and 21. On the front, DNS. On the back, 53. But I'll tell you, if you'll use a tool like that and not an electronic flashcard tool, I really think you need to go old school. There's been a lot of data to suggest that the act of putting pen to paper is a better way of learning, and I believe that.
Yeah.
And just go through and do those port numbers. Now, with the OSI model, there are some tricks. There are various mnemonics that are out there to remember the 7 stages of the OSI. I'm not necessarily saying you need to Google that because you will find that there are some less than appropriate ways to remember, and that's the beauty of the internet, quote unquote. For algorithms, for symmetric versus asymmetric algorithm, I've got some tips in my CISSP course on how you can say, okay, these are the ones that are symmetric, these are the ones that are asymmetric. So if you're looking for that, it's in the CISSP course, and it just takes 4 or 5 minutes to do, which is why I'm not doing it now. But if you go to the CISSP course under cryptography, under asymmetric algorithms, I talk about how to memorize the asymmetric algorithms. And if it's not an asymmetric algorithm, well, it's going to be a symmetric algorithm, right? So a lot of times in my courses, I try to bring those little tricks in. So if you're looking for something about hashing algorithms, try to take a couple of minutes and go look at that specific section on the course, and I'll always bring in little tricks that I know of.
Yeah, I think what you said, the flashcards is definitely something that I think now with all of the technology we have, people kind of forget about those kind of textile learning things. And I learn a lot better that way. There is something about like having to write it, physically doing it, and then reading it off of that instead of just like typing it in. It does kind of put it in your brain a little bit better, right? For me, at least.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Camille just wanted to say thank you. She just passed her CISSP course today.
Yay.
And said your videos were a tremendous help.
And that's what it's all about, right? Camille, thank you so much for reaching out and letting me know. Congratulations. That is awesome. It is a huge accomplishment because, I can put the material out there, but the work that you must have done to go through and learn it and to pass that test, give yourself a great big pat on the back.
Yeah,
Congratulations. Yay.
So that is actually a perfect segue kind of into Roger's question. So he said that he just finished completing one of your courses. He has the studying books. He's taken some of the online exams. He's starting to do some of the labs. He's asking, what is the best indicator that he is really ready for the exam? You do have to pay money for them, and that is a big barrier for a lot of people. They aren't cheap. So how do you kind of finally know that you're ready to take those?
So there's always going to be that unknown. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be that factor of whether you're a good test taker or a confident test taker or not, right? So I could be knocking it out of the ballpark sitting at home in my bunny slippers and then go and get panic mode at the test center, right? So there's always that possibility. But if we're just talking generally speaking, I always feel like if you're getting 80 to 85% of the questions right from regardless of what source. Mm-hmm. So I recommend once you feel like you understand the material, start drilling practice questions. Okay, and it's not about trying to memorize for the exam. That's not it at all, because the exams that have integrity, there aren't questions out there that are from the real exam, right? So what you find is these organizations like Kaplan. Kaplan's a favorite of mine because they took over Transcender, as you know, mm-hmm. And they've always had integrity in their questions. They're not selling you real test questions, but they're helping you ensure you know what you need to do before walking in. Yeah. And so what I would do is drill those questions. See questions from more than one source, because every vendor kind of has their own spin, and there are a lot of sources out there that every book you buy is going to have some sample questions. And when you're getting about 80% pretty consistently, then I think you're probably ready to go for that. The big things, if you're not a great test taker, don't go back and change your answers on the test. You're just going to change right answers wrong more often than not. Get a good night's sleep beforehand. Control the thoughts that you have when you're testing. You're your own worst enemy if you're not a good test taker. So, there are just some little tricks and tips like that. But, I feel pretty good. If you're getting about 80% of the material, you're ready to go on out there.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. And then let's see. So our last question, somebody was saying that they knows that you added the CISO and CCSP to your list of certifications.
Yes.
So they were wondering, what are your thoughts on both of those exams, and how might they help set somebody up for a CISO role?
Okay, great question. So I would absolutely say some certifications are going to stand out, particularly if you're looking to shift towards management. Mm-hmm. CISSP is a must-have, because if you're going to be in management, the vast majority of people you're managing are going to be CISSPs, most likely. So you need that credential to show your employees you understand, mm-hmm. right? And it's also a big picture exam. It's not nitty-gritty technical. It's at a level that's appropriate. Now, when you shift over to looking at the CISO course, we've also got Certified in Governance of Enterprise IT, the CGIT mm-hmm. course that's we did a live online session in. At those certifications kind of shift more towards value delivery, because when it comes right down to it, that's the focus as far as the company cares about. Yeah. Only reason the company cares about IT at all is we deliver value. Yeah. So the problem with that is we haven't been able to document and to prove our value, mm-hmm. right? I'll guarantee you, if you ask 100 people what IT does, you're going to get a lot of responses, and most of which will revolve around you fix stuff. Yep. You reset accounts, you keep the computers running, you fix the printers. The answer every person should give us when I say, what is IT? What do they do? Deliver value, right? Yeah. You'd hear that for sales, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, so sales brings in a lot of money, ideally. Yeah. But we keep the organization from losing a lot of money. Yeah. And if you don't believe me, ask some of the companies that we've seen lose millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. It's a lot of value if I don't lose $100 million, right?
Oh, yeah.
So not to mention how we assist in efficiency, how we assist with reputation in the industry. We deliver value. So as I start going up or to the upper echelon, what I want to be able to do is say, okay, I've got a technical team. I want to be able to manage those folks. I want to be able to manage a portfolio of IT endeavors, and I want to be able to show and prove that we've met our objectives and the value that we've delivered is on par with what we've committed to, right? So it's an entirely different focus, but get your CISSP first. Then if you want to go to CISO, sure, the CISO certification is great. It's a tough one. CISM, PMP would also be ones that I would think about along that way.
Yeah, it was a good, great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I don't have too much more. I mean, is there anything else? I mean, you would like to get out to your students or future students or anybody who's on Cybrary at the moment?
If I had to pass along anything to any of my students, and this is just off the top of my head, but it would be don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Okay. It is hard to make a career change, or it's hard to come out of your comfort zone. It's hard to walk into an exam room and, know you just spent $600 for an exam, right? Because the exams are expensive.
Yes.
I find myself going, well, this is a $4 question. That's a $9 question, you know? That gets in your mind. But you know what? You have to invest in yourself. And sometimes you don't get that immediate payback. I remember the very first certification exam I ever took. It was Network Essentials for Microsoft. The book was 1,300 pages of boring stuff, and I read every page, and I took notes. And passing score was 700, and I got 673.
Ooh.
And I walked out to the parking lot, to the payphone in the parking lot, again, dating myself, and I called my mama. And I said, I'm not smart enough to do this. And of course, like the good mother, she said, essentially, shut up, go back and study, be there in a week and take it again. And I passed it again. And I didn't have to have that negative experience. Looking back, that first failure kind of took some of the pressure off me.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have a perfect record anymore, right? And it also showed me, if you don't pass an exam the first time, realize you still come out with knowledge. The knowledge is you didn't study the right way.
Yeah.
I need to find something different to do. But everybody fails somewhere along the line in this career. So if you're a student that didn't get the score you wanted on a test, or if you're just somebody that's going to seek certification throughout your life, it will happen. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get right back in there with the right mental approach. Now I know something I didn't know before I took the test. That's the best advice I can give anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the same thing happened to me at my IT help desk job that I had. You started in like a 3-week boot camp. At the end of each week, you had a test. If you passed, you went on to the next week, and then the third week, you got to take the test twice if you failed. So I passed week 1, passed week 2, failed week 3. And it was over like a holiday weekend, so it was a long weekend, and the only time I could take the test again was the Monday you're supposed to start work. So I show up to work on Monday. If I pass the test, I start work. If I don't pass the test, I don't have a job. So yeah, I mean, you just kind of learn, okay, it does take a little the pressure off, after you fail. You're kind of thinking, okay, well, I really need to get it this next time, but you do learn along the way. It's like, okay, well, this is what I missed. This is what I need to focus more on, or the test was more like this, asking these type of questions than what I thought. So, I mean, you can always learn something from a failure, especially on like a test or something like that. Don't let it discourage you or anything. You just kind of, it does help you think and learn what you need to learn.
Absolutely. It's just another life lesson.
Yeah.
They beat you down for a little bit, but, you're gaining resiliency, you're showing determination. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being here today, Kelly. It's great. Always great having you in the studio. So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thor, I love being here. I'm a big fan of Cybrary and a fan of the work that you do and all the others behind the scenes. So I appreciate you having me. And I appreciate anybody and everybody that's watching the podcast, looking to learn a little bit more about Cybrary and what we do here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kelly's got some more courses she's coming out with and then some other things that we're working on. So stay tuned and you'll see all that stuff.
Great.
All
Well,
right.
thank you very much.